Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me this evening. I'm here in Thurles on a wet and windy day. Delighted to be here, and I'm sure you may have joined other sessions during the day, so I'm very honoured that you would join this one as well. And I'm going to talk maybe 20 minutes or so about MIC Thurles. Now, seeing is believing, and the real message today is we have our open day, all going well, on the Saturday, November 6th. And you can register for that event. In fact, you have to register, obviously, to be compliant with COVID regulations. So that's an important message. What I'll try and do today is just to give you a sense of the campus, a sense of what we're at, safe in the knowledge that it won't be half as good as you physically joining us on November 6th. So as Pat kindly said, my name is Finn. I'm head of school in MIC Thurles. My phone number and my email is freely available for you should you wish to ask me any question in private. I'm conscious that some of you might be well able to use the chat bar. And by the way, don't worry about the spelling on the chat bar. It's not a spelling test. It's an opportunity to ask questions. So don't be shy using the chat bar. But if you do find that technology lets you down or whatever, you can always send me an email. My mobile number is there, but email is probably the best way. Pat will know well that trying to catch me on the phone isn't as easy as email. So welcome aboard. I hope you're excited at the thought of becoming a post-primary teacher. It's a wonderful space to be in, that you're thinking about becoming a teacher. I can't think of a more powerful profession to join. I'm a teacher now for, well, longer than I'd like to think about, at least over 35, 36 years. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out what it's all about. But the real piece that I love about teaching is making a difference in somebody else's life, however small. Sometimes you don't even know you make the difference until they come back and give you a phone call or bump into you on the street a number of years later. But you all know the power of a good teacher. Hopefully you've all witnessed a good teacher. And the magic about this profession is you can be that person. You can be that person to make a difference. So I'll use the analogy of the development of a butterfly, and to say that we're a 4-year program. You'll probably come in, most of you, after doing your leaving cert. Some of you might have taken a year out. Some of you might have taken more than a year out. Some of you might be quite mature. Some of you might be as old as me. And you're coming back to education, and you're looking at teaching as a profession. Whether you're straight out of secondary school, or you've been out there for a while doing different things, it's a very, very brave step, and we acknowledge the brave step that is walking up that avenue there on the slide and crossing that threshold. But please do note, on the other side of that door is an extremely warm welcome among people who understand what it means to learn, who understand what it means to struggle with learning, who understand what it means to be a teacher, and who will do everything they can to understand you so that you'll grow in confidence, and after 4 years, you leave us in full flight. So as you can probably gather, we're about people. We're not about everybody being the same, far from it. We actually chase that people wouldn't be the same. You have got so far in your life because of you, and we would like you to take full advantage of all the skills you bring with you to our college, so that you can become the teacher you want to be. Now, we might on occasions challenge you to be the teacher we think you need to be, but what we're really saying is you are an individual with individual skills, with individual qualities, some of which you mightn't even realize right now. But once you get into our program, you'll start seeing things making sense to you in a new way, and you'll start making sense of the world possibly in a new way. But curiously, you'll also start looking at yourself in a new way, and in a very positive way. So we look forward to working in a united manner, but certainly not in a uniform manner. So we'll be there working together, making it happen for each other. It's not your leaving cert. It's not that you can't all do very well. You're not in competition with each other. So we have 3 B's. We have believe, belong, become. So we had the butterfly on the first slide, and on this one, we're going for the buzzy bees of believe, belong, become. So we want you to believe in yourself. Quite a lot of you may be a little bit reticent, might lack in confidence with regard to going to college. So we want you to believe in yourself. We want you to know that you will belong in our college. Currently, we would expect to have around 500 students on campus when you arrive. So that's, you know, slightly less than an average secondary school. And when we say belong, we do mean belong. I met a student from second year yesterday, and I said, how are you getting on? He said, fine. And I said, what's it like? And as in college. And he said, you know what I like about here is that everybody walks around with their head up. And I thought it was a lovely phrase. Everybody walks around with their head up. So you don't be looking at your shoes. You walk with your head up. You salute the people, whether you know them or not, and you salute people by name, including staff, all staff, and all staff will know your name very quickly as well. So that sense of belonging is important to us because you can then focus on learning. And the more you have a belief in yourself and the more you have a sense of belonging, then the final B comes into play, which is you becoming a teacher. And that's the goal, and that's the key for our existence. And it's a wonderful, wonderful space to operate in, and all going well. If it's meant for you, you'll be joining us too. If you have an interest in primary, just to say on a personal note, I applied for primary school back in the dark ages for Mary I, and I wasn't successful. I actually didn't get the points. So I don't want you to be overly worried about points just yet. I will share the points with you, but I want you to focus for now over the next few minutes on the power of being a post-primary teacher. But I want you to consider between now and the next time we meet the magic of being a teacher and the understanding that this might actually be for you. All right. So we have 6 undergraduate honours degree accredited by the Teaching Council, as Pat mentioned. And we have within that, currently, as far as we're aware, we have 100% employment because of the reputation of our college. So at the moment, if you're a maths graduate or a Gaeilge graduate, you have a job. Some people are getting jobs without even interviews. We are inundated with principals asking us for teachers of the subjects that we're providing. Okay, 2 reasons for that. One is there is a shortage in certain subject areas, in certain locations. And secondly, principals know from our students, from they going out on school placement, principals know the quality of what we have to offer. So that's the reason that we're doing so well with our employment stats. And I'll talk a little bit more about career as we progress. So last year, the intake of 150 students. Within that intake, we saw 6 programs coming on board. The vast majority of those programs, the points went up. But as a Corkman, O'Hochus, I'll draw upon another Corkman, Roy Keane, who said, forget about the league tables, focus on the match. So what I would say to you, irrespective of your setting, be you a mature student, a further ed student, or as is the case for most of you, a leaving cert student, either currently or next year, my advice is you put your head down, you do the best you can do where you are, and the rest will fall into place. So there's just a sample of the points. You can see that they're quite high. We've even broken 500 points there, 509. So our programs are in demand. Okay, let's put it that way. But my advice to you is not to overly focus on the points. Like, let's face it, you have to be passionate about your subjects. Going back to that earlier point, if you can recall a good teacher, I'll bet you that good teacher was passionate about their subject. So there's no point in choosing subjects that you think will get you a job. I wouldn't advise that at all. I'd advise you to choose subjects that you have a passion and an interest in and that you'd like to share with the young people in your company. Okay, so last year we did a lot of work online, obviously, and you can see there some of the staff. And we also did a lot of work with each other around learning and learning about what it means to be online. And that was cool, because what we actually ended up doing then was we ended up learning from the students. And there was a real democratic conversations around, well, how will we do this and how will we do that? So again, the staff are magnificent. You can see some of them there in the caption. And we would be very, very happy to meet with you on November 6th to have that conversation and to start beginning to believe in yourself that maybe this place is for you after all. And it is for you in the sense of, it doesn't matter what religion you have, whether you have a religion or not. It doesn't matter what sexual orientation, how old you are, where you're from. All of that is irrelevant to us. What we want is you. And what we love is diversity. And we love people coming to our campus with that lovely, lovely ambition and goal to become a teacher. So the program is about you. You would have 4 segments to your program, in that you have your 2 art subjects. So, for example, you might be maths and Gaeilge, you might be business and religion. They're your 2 subjects. You have school placement, which takes up a quarter of your program, and we'll support you fully with school placement. We'll support you access school placement. We'll support you to participate during school placement, and we'll support you in making sure that you secure lots of benefits from school placement. We won't be sending you to a school you don't want to go. Usually what we do is we work around you giving us maybe 3 options. Most people will go back home and take one school for 6 weeks in year 2, and we have a 14-week program then in year 4. Some students like to go back to their own school. Other students, it's the last school they want to go back to. But again, all done in conversation and in negotiation with yourself. So, as we said, it's about you, and there's a picture of students in 1st year who are now in 4th year, and those students are our students doing a little bit of team teaching. So you have a student on the right with the white jumper and the page, monitoring the work being done by the class, and we have another student on the left keeping an eye by the window on what's going on as well. Lots of students love the teaching, but they're also nervous about the teaching. Sometimes we say what you need the most, you hate the most. And you do need a little bit of courage to stand up and teach the first time, and you indeed the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time. But what we will do is we'll support you. We might ask you to work in pairs first so that 2 of you are engaged, and that can take the sting out of maybe you sensing that everything is focused upon you. But that said, it is all about you, and the school and the campus play off what you bring and what you can bring and what you bring when you leave us as well. So that interplay between school, campus, and you is very important to us. And they all look a little bit too serious there in that photo, because I knew the photo was being taken. But we have lots of fun, and it is a collaborative space. And to become a teacher in the modern age, yeah, you have to be good. You have to be a good player, but you have to be a good team player as well, because the days of being a teacher on your own are long gone. And the good teachers talk about our students as well as saying my students, because they understand that it's a team effort in a school, just as it's a team effort on our campus to assist you. So when we say becoming a teacher, what are we actually talking about? Well, you will be joining a profession, and that profession is regulated by the Teaching Council. So just like you have a medical profession that is regulated by the Medical Council, you have a teaching profession that's that's regulated by the Teaching Council. And within that space, the key words are on the 3rd bullet point from the end: trust, care, respect, and integrity. They trip off the tongue pretty quickly, but that's really what we're about. And when you become a teacher over 4 years in our company, you'll develop your skills around teaching, learning, and assessment. Fair enough. You'll focus on your personal, professional, and pedagogical development. Now, you're well aware personal means about your own growth as a person, such as your confidence, your ability to speak in public, your ability to work collaboratively with others, your ability to work off your own initiative and work independently. That's the personal piece. The professional piece is that you quickly realize the importance of your job. You realize how important it is to act and behave in a certain way. you realize that you have a duty of care and responsibility to somebody other than yourself. And that's the professional element. And it could be as simple as how you dress when you go on school placement to how you engage in professional conversations with parents. And again, a lot of our work on campus will prepare you for that personal professional growth and development. Just on the point of working with parents, we have a unique program. As far as I'm aware, it's not happening anywhere in Europe at post-primary level, where we work with the National Parents Council to support you around working with not just parents, but other significant adults in young people's worlds. And the big word there, pedagogical, that sometimes trips me up. But basically, it's a catch-all for teaching, learning, and assessment. So your development as a teacher, remember the good teachers that you had. How did they teach you? How did you learn in their company? What was the importance of assessment? What was the importance of feedback? That's all wrapped up in the pedagogical space. And, you know, you remember the teacher who gave you really good feedback on maybe an assignment or a homework assignment that you submitted, versus the teacher who maybe gave you little or no feedback and left you wondering, were you making progress or not? So we try and honor those three dimensions of becoming a teacher. We're very interested in you being able to differentiate between different students, play the strengths, and also attend to the weaknesses of particular students. And we're interested, as I said earlier, that you would learn the skills of collaboration, including, as you saw on the previous slide, maybe collaborating in class as well as collaborating for class. Inclusive teacher, reflective teacher. My background is I taught for 17 years. Then I was a department inspector, was a senior inspector for special education. And the one thing I learned about special education was good teaching is good teaching. So if you look out for individual students, that will have the effect of looking out for the whole class, and that will have the effect of benefiting the whole class. So if you have a particular grow or interest in special education, then I think our campus has a particular strength in that regard, and you will graduate as an inclusive teacher. Will you know everything? Absolutely not. Nobody does. But what it will do is it will set you in motion so that you will realize that you have a professional responsibility to meet the needs of the students in your class, all the students in your class. The reflective teacher, again, we're talking there about you thinking about what you're doing. Why? Because it's not enough to think about yourself. You need to think about the impact of your actions upon somebody else. That's what a reflective teacher means. That's why reflection is so important when you're dealing with other people. For example, in medicine, reflective practice is important as well, so that you can continue to maintain the high standards you have or find areas that you need to improve on. If lots of patients are suffering at your hands, then it's time to reflect and maybe have a look at your own practice. Similarly, with teaching, you reflect upon a day's class, you reflect upon the positives, not just the negatives. You say, I did that well, I'm not too sure about that one, and I need to find out more about something else. And that might be I need to find out more about a student or a teaching methodology that might work for that student. The trust, care and respect we spoke about. And we do believe in MIC Thurles in the centrality of the teacher, the power of the teacher to change people's lives. And in that regard, not only will you learn to be a teacher, we'll also encourage you to be a leader, a researcher, and a learner. And the good news is becoming a teacher is a lifelong journey. Being a teacher is about becoming a teacher. It's non-stop. And that leadership piece, again, what we have found over the years is that you come to college and you're saying, oh, leadership is about a school principal, or leadership is about the Minister for Education. And suddenly you realize the leadership you've already brought. You might have been coaching a team, you might have been involved in Irish dancing, you might have been involved in some activity in school, where actually you have to draw upon your leadership skills. And that's an important point for us. One of the first things we do is we ask you, have you any hobbies or have you any work experience? Sometimes it's in a teaching capacity, certainly, maybe transition year you were involved in teaching. Other times people will say, well, I worked in a pub. And I said, well, working in a pub is closely associated with behavior and managing behavior, which brings us back into the classroom. Somebody else will say, I worked in a supermarket like Dunn's or Penny's or somewhere. And again, customer engagement. How do you get the best out of people? What happens when people react badly or differently to what you're saying? That's all, again, part of that process. So as you can see, it's an exciting space and exciting times. Some of the unique features about our campus, because we're a relatively small campus, is that you're actually missed because we're still small enough to know when you go missing. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a school. It's certainly not a school, and we won't be looking for your journal or your note from home. That's not how it operates. But if you're missing for, a period of time that's, causing a little bit of concern, we'll either send you an email, and I'll send a one-line email. Hi, Finn, hope all okay. Haven't seen you for a while. Give me a shout if you want to talk. That's it. And you can ignore it or you can engage. But usually what happens is that friends of somebody who is absent from class, and we know there can be loads of reasons for being absent from class. But sometimes it's the friends who rescue the situation or bring it to somebody's attention. So within that is the notion of it being a safe place. Thurles is a small town. Yeah, it's not New York, it's not London, it's not Dublin. It's a small town, it's a safe town, and it's a relatively cheap town from the point of view of accommodation and so on and so forth. So we keep an eye out for each other on campus and off campus. And because we're around 500 students in size, it's not that we're better than anybody, it's just that we have a better chance of keeping an eye. The 4-year concurrent model, I'll talk a little bit about that. Concurrent simply means happening at the same time. So what's happening at the same time? You're learning to teach, so you're getting your teaching qualification, and at the same time, you're learning about your 2 subjects, so you're getting your BA qualification. So they come together, and that's the concurrent model. And I'll explain the value of that concurrent model later as well, because it's actually, the line I use, it's half the price and twice the value. It's half the price compared to doing a consecutive model, which is you do 3-4 years of a degree, and then you go and do your teaching as a PME, Professional Masters in Education. That takes 6 years, at a minimum 5. By the time you're finished, they're still in college for another year. You're out teaching, you're out earning. Plus, more importantly, the fact that you're learning to teach and learning your subject simultaneously, I think that makes you a better teacher. And that's the reason I left the inspector to take up this position when I was lucky enough to be appointed. I believed in that whole concept, and I really, really am a fan of what Mary I Primary and Early Childhood have been doing for years. And we like to think that we brought the best of that program, of those programs, to our post-primary program. And it's a passport, not only for life, but it's geographically, MIC, as you'll see shortly, is recognized throughout the world. And we do engage in internationalization. I mentioned USA, Japan, Australia, Nepal, etc. They're just some of the countries that we work with. And okay, COVID has caused us to kind of retract a little bit from that activity, but we're ready and raring to go once the world opens up again in post-COVID, and hopefully that won't be too long. So you're on 4 placements as well. So I'm on bullet point number 4 there. You have 4 school placements, including that special setting. So year 1, you're out for a week in March in a primary school of your choice. Some people go back to their home primary school and they're paraded around like they've just come in with the Lee McCarthy or Sam Maguire or similar trophies. And you're feted and you're greeted and you're looked after. Year 2, you go for a 6-week placement. Year 3, you go for a 2-week placement, usually around a special setting with the potential to travel abroad. Currently, we have programs set up with a number of countries. I'll show that in a moment. And then year 4 is the 14-week placement, which is a significant placement, and that completes your 4-year program. So as I said, the fit to fight of concurrent, the alignment of pedagogy into one program, so it's there for you. We look after you not only during your time here, but subsequently as well. We have a career person coming our way shortly who will run an office which will make sure that they can assist you in your choice of school, or even if you don't want to go teaching, in your choice of preferred career for whatever particular time you want to engage in such. And that support continues for life. Once you join us, we never let go of you, okay? In that sense of, we're always there. We're there for you, like yesterday and indeed today, because it's midterm break. We had some students who popped back in to say hello. We had one student who'd fallen on hard times and needed a little bit of support and advice. A lot of students came to celebrate and to thank us. And that's the spirit of what we're about. So once you join us for life in that sense. Now, I don't mean that in a kind of a surveillance sense, but in a supportive sense. And look, everybody has bumps along the road, and when they happen, don't forget that you can come back to us on those occasions too. So you're supported on school placement by all staff. We prep and do a lot of work on micro teaching in advance of going out on placement. And as I said, we have the international dimension. Now, this map looks a little bit messy, I'm sure, but within that, you can see some of the places that we are engaged with. So Mexico, Morocco, Canada, Brazil, USA, Canada there's twice, Australia, Nepal, Japan, Malawi. That currently are some of the countries that we're engaged in different projects with. And you're more than welcome to be involved. And by the way, you know, some of you might get homesick as you reach the end of the road where your house is. So it's not forced, it's optional. The key word there is optional international dimension. So it'll be ideal for some people, for other people, it won't be what they want to do at all. And that's fine. This is optional, and we can have conversations long in advance around what's best for you. So we also have accommodation on our campus, 36 single room accommodation, and that's earmarked specifically for the students of first year. And my colleague Rob O'Halloran will assist you with regard to queries around accommodation. So it's single room, secure, safe, clean accommodation on campus, combined with Wi-Fi, combined with within walking distance of everything in Thurles town, combined with the fact that, as we said, it's first years only, but it does get picked up pretty fast. No, it's not all work, obviously, and we do encourage people to stay healthy and be healthy. Gaelic Games is obviously a dominant focus for us, and the beauty of our campus is you can set up any club or society you wish. I just came away from a meeting there of a jive club. So jive dancing is there. We've got tag rugby. We've got a whole range of supports from the point of view of extracurricular activities. And we value them because we know it's good for your mental health to be involved in a range of activities, from walking to playing, playing with elite athletes, and there's quite a number of elite athletes on our campus. Some of you might recognise Desi Hutchinson there from Waterford. We also have a very strong lady football team who are actually in Castlebar as I speak today, and they're up there playing GMIT. And you also have up in that footballing space, you have a lot of intercounty lady footballers who bring a lot of pride and joy to the college. So it's an open door policy for us. Everybody is welcome, and everybody's welcome to set up any club and society they want. We have a chaplain and a counsellor there who do great work, usually invisibly and very quietly, but incredibly effectively. We've got access scholarships, which I can talk a little bit about you as well. We have academic support, so if you want to improve your Gaeilge or if you want to do anything else, we can help you there. We can help you with academic writing. And I suppose an important point is there's no need to have religion, business or accounting in your leaving cert. So that's an important point. If you have an interest in religious studies, business or accounting, and you didn't do it in your leaving cert, that's not a negative. In fact, some people would say it's a positive. But just so you know that. So on the next slide, talking a little bit about the scholarships. So we've got sports scholarships. We've also got academic scholarships. We've got TOMAR funded scholarship, which again is for those students transferring from further education into the college. And I won't go into the mathematics too much, but that's my line about the concurrent versus the consecutive. So the concurrent, as I say, comes out at around 12,000, while the PME concurrent could come out, sorry, consecutive, confusing myself, it could be twice the price by the time you're finished. So from my perspective, it's a no-brainer. Plus, you're out teaching a year, if not 2 years before anybody else. And as I say, currently, based on our statistics, it's looking like 100% of our students are employed. But that said, it doesn't necessarily have to be teaching. It doesn't necessarily have to always be teaching. Now, the vast majority, it is teaching, but there are transferable skills. So yeah, certainly within teaching, you might stay teaching for the rest of your life as a classroom teacher. And how wonderful is that? Absolutely. Equally, you might progress to being a principal, an inspector, a researcher, a lecturer, but still working in that educational field. The other alternative then is that if you were involved with Gaeilge, you might go into translation, you might go into media, business and accounting. There's a whole range of work, entrepreneurial, commercial, accounting, the list goes on. And indeed, religion as well. You have the notion of community development and counselling. So there we go, half the cost and twice the value. So I won't labour that point, and I'm going to skip to the next slide, which is, again, just to remind you that it's about you, just to remind you that it's about sharing, it's about caring, it's about working together. And one of our regular comments is, don't be afraid to be brilliant. And it might be the first time that you're brilliant. Some of you might be lucky enough, you might be brilliant on a regular basis. But the invitation when you come to us is, don't be afraid to be brilliant. So give it your best shot, see where that takes you. And in that regard, give it your best shot when you're in school now. As I say, if you're interested in us, we'd be delighted to meet you. Obviously, I'll take questions today, but as I said at the opening, November 6th is the day that I think you should try and save to come and meet us, to come and get a real understanding of what we're at and ask loads of questions, especially of our students. So we'll have a whole number of students who will be quite happy to give you guided tours of the campus, talk to you about the college, how it works, how the lectures work, how the tutorials work, how assessment works, what school placement like, what's the crack in Thurles like, and so on and so forth. So on that note, I will draw my session to a close at this point, just to thank you and to say to you, I appreciate your attention. I know I spoke a lot there and I spoke online, which even makes it more difficult to pay attention. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for logging on today. And as Tara Westover said, whoever you become, whatever you take, make yourself into, that is who you always were. It was always in you. And that's how we operate. We don't make teachers. We support you to become the teacher that was always in you. And on that note, we look forward to seeing you on Open Day, November 6th. Please do adhere to COVID compliance regulations if you are coming on campus. And those details will be available online as you register. So, Goramila, everybody, and I'll hand you back to Pat.
That's great, Finn. Thanks very much for that. So we have, obviously we have our Q&A facility at the top of your screen. So any attendees, if you do have a question for Finn, now is the time to use it. So if you want to use the chat function, just type in your question and I'll put it to Finn. We have a number of questions that we already have who were submitted earlier that I'm going to put to Finn now. I know you touched on it kind of already, Finn, but you might just tell us a little bit more about school placement, how exactly it works. Do students have to organise it themselves, or does the college help out in terms of organising it?
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, we help out. We play a key role in helping out on school placement. Again, it's not because we're nice people, it's because we're dependent upon schools as places where you can practice what you've learned on campus. And to practice properly, you need to practice in the right conditions. So we select schools that are supportive of your school placement, that understand the trepidation and worry that comes with starting to teach in a real school with real students. And we would work very closely with the schools who provide what we call cooperating teachers, or TRORE, who meet with the student probably on a daily basis, or on an even more frequent basis if the needs arise, might even allow them into their class to observe, might even team teach with them, both teaching at the same time. And that's one level of support. So we choose the school with the support of the student teacher. We have cooperating teachers in those schools, and then we have our placement tutors who go and visit and support our students while they're out in placement. So there are a number of layers and a number of channels of support for our students. And also because of online, Pat, this year we discovered that we could set up Teams meetings, not unlike today, and we could have, a Friday afternoon come together for a half an hour or an hour where everybody on placement gets to have an opportunity to relax, ask questions, see how everybody else is doing. So plenty of supports there, and we're very well aware of the challenges and excitement associated with school placement.
Great, thanks, Finn. And just suppose a follow-on question to that, just how, I suppose, is school placement assessed, Finn? You might just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a number of ways of assessing school placement. You might recall we spoke about the reflective teacher. So we would ask you to submit on a weekly basis how you're getting on, what are you learning about yourself, what are you learning about your students. And the other assessment piece then is that the placement tutors will go and visit the school, have conversations with the staff, visit you in class teaching, support you with your teaching, and then draw up based on set criteria, which ranges from your ability to plan a lesson, to implement a lesson, to assess students, to draw up a grade. And that grade then carries a lot of weight towards your final degree. And what we find is that academic students do well on school placement, but if sometimes we find that students who might be struggling academically on campus absolutely blossom on school placement because they're drawing upon other skills like their ability to get on with people, their interpersonal skills, their ability to build relationships with students, with parents, with teachers. And that's all factored in, Pat, when we're assessing students. But by and large, our students come out with a first class or a 2-1, and they then progress, as you saw earlier, folks, they progress into employment quite easy. Before you leave us, you would come back and we would actually do a week's career upskilling where we would look at interview techniques, CV, presentation, etc., all to add to your chances of being gainfully employed over the summer.
That's great, Finn. Thanks a million. We have a question now from Lucy Denver, and Lucy wants to know, would you need junior cert business if you want to do the Gaeilge and business degree?
Hi, Lucy. Great question, and thank you for it. The good news is no, you don't. You don't need to have any background in business. The two subjects that you need to have a qualifying grade in are Gaeilge and mathematics. And if I recall correctly, Gaeilge and mathematics are coming in at H5, that you have to secure a H5 or better in order to be considered, irrespective of your points. With mathematics, there is also an acceptance for an O1, in the sense of we know students may be doing higher level and then subsequently decide to do ordinary level on the day of the exam or shortly before, and we seek to acknowledge that as well. But that's all those nitty-gritty details are available on our website. But the key point and the key question, Lucy, is no, you don't have to have any background in business at all.
Thanks, Finn. Next question is from Aoife, And Aoife wants to know what years would we teach during placement?
Very good question again. Year 2 is usually devoted to your junior cycle. So your placement would be teaching year 1s and year 2s and 3s. And then your year 4 placement, you will be teaching from year 1 to leaving cert. And in the current climate as well, Aoife, what we're finding is that, that 14-week placement is like a long interview. It's like teachers and principals are looking at you from the point of view of, will we hold on to Aoife? And the fact that you have the exposure to year 1 to year 6 as a result of our program being accredited by the Teaching Council for all levels, then that stands to your advantage. If I may as well, quite a lot of schools have special classes. And we do a lot of work with Middletown Centre for Autism. And we would like to think that we have begun to prepare. We will never prepare you fully for working with any child because, as we said, teaching is a lifelong experience. But what we would say is that we have good feedback on our ability to support you working in the area of special educational needs as well. And for example, I'm on the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, and we have different levels. We have level 2 and level 1. All of you, I would suspect, have done level 3 in your junior cert. So for students with more significant needs, we also prepare you for teaching in that space, including teaching in special schools.
Thanks, Finn. Next question is from Kira. Finn, I suppose it's an entry requirement question. What level of maths would I need if I wanted to take it as a subject?
I'm scratching my head, Pat. I think it's a H5 that we require.
Yeah, you're dead right, Finn. So if you're doing higher level, it's a H5, and if it's ordinary level, it's an O1. So you're dead right. That's what you need. So you can either do higher level or ordinary level, but you just have to get that requirement.
Exactly.
Follow on from that one, Finn. Are there any other career options outside of teaching for subjects like accounting?
Yeah, what we would find, Pat, is that of all the combinations, the business and accounting one is one where we would have students who would progress into the world of enterprise, into the accounting space, be it companies like KPMG and PwC and so forth, and EY and all those larger accountancy firms. So definitely we have strong links in that regard as well. The good news is by the time you finish in our company, we will probably have postgraduate programs with regard to business, and that will also be another opportunity for you to draw upon your entrepreneurial skills. So it's not that you necessarily have to go into teaching. But the funny thing is that if you do go into an occupation other than teaching, anybody I've met says, but you draw upon your teaching skills. You draw upon how to work with people. You draw upon how to influence people. You draw upon how to get the best out of people. So in that regard, there are certainly alternatives, and we support you. And as I said, we'll have our career guidance in place as well by the time you join us. Which again will add to the quality of the experience, we hope.
That's great, Finn. Next question is from Quiva, and she wants to know, does the business and accounting program qualify you to teach junior cert maths?
No is the answer, but that doesn't mean you won't be asked by a school to teach junior cert maths because you have business and accounting. But under the strict interpretation of the Teaching Council regulations, it doesn't, because you don't have maths in your final degree. But I am well aware of, in practice, that it would happen. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Laura Sutton then, Finn, she wants to know, is home economics teaching coming to Mary Immaculate in Thurles?
Laura, we are working hard. We think it would be wonderful if we could have home economics coming to Thurles. But the sad news is, I hope nobody's hungry out there. We won't be making anything. We won't be baking any cakes or making dinners just yet. Not this year, at any rate.
Okay, thanks, Finn. Amy then is wondering, what's the business and religion course like?
Well, there's only one way to find out really, Amy. That's come and join us on November 6th. But what I can say is we have wonderful lecturers, many of them quite young themselves. And the business course is a very broad course. Sometimes I think it's like psychology because you're learning about people and you're learning about organizational behavior and how we do the things we do and the way we do them. The religion is fascinating because it's not our religion, it's religious studies. So you have the whole gambit of all religious studies at your disposal. And one minute you're studying Islam, the next minute you're studying Judaism and so forth. And biblical studies then bring us into a whole new world. And we've got two young theologians on our campus who defy what I might have thought a theologian was, because they're young, they're cool, and they connect really well with the students. So thank you, Pat, and for the question.
Okay, we have another one now, Finn, from Emma Finnerty, and Emma wants to know: does the standard 4 years qualify you to teach junior and senior cycle, or do you have to do additional years to teach senior cycle?
No, the good news is after 4 years, you are accredited by the Teaching Council to teach at any level from first year to Leaving Cert.
Great. Similar question then from Fiona Sharp. Fiona wants to know, can you only teach Leaving Cert business with the business and maths degree, or does it allow you to teach any economics or accounting?
Yeah, again, it's a bit like the previous question, Pat. In theory, it doesn't, but in practice, we know that it does. It does play out that way, most definitely. And yeah, that's the best I can answer on that one.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, Finn. Aoife then wants to know how many hours are involved. I presume that's just in a typical week or a typical day.
Yeah, it's 3 million hours a day, Aoife. It's full on. No, I'm only joking. What we have is you have 15 hours of class contact time, and I guess what I would say it's a bit like the back screen that we have here, Patrick and myself. You see all those squares. So some of those squares will be taken up with class contact time, 15 hours. But then the other squares would be taken up with you studying on your own or studying in groups. And then there are other slots on your timetable that are free for you to engage in teaching practice. You can video yourself, you can work with your friends. We have specifically designed rooms now. I guess they're real breakout rooms where you can go and practice your teaching in isolation or with a group of your friends. They're all equipped with Wi-Fi and with whiteboard and screen. So really, the minimum is your 15 hours of class contact time over the 12 weeks of a semester. But the reality is that you do a lot more. And of course, the other piece to all of this is the conversations you have over a coffee, at lunchtime, at break time, whatever, where you learn from conversations with your friends. And indeed staff as well, who might join you for a coffee, and you can shoot the breeze and ask additional questions. So in that space, it's all in. I suppose it's as close to 24/7 as you can make it. But we're also conscious that people have busy lives. We're conscious that some people are parents or carers and minders, and some of you have to work in order to attend college, and all of that is factored in as well. Assessments are negotiable in the sense of we would set them out, but we would then have conversations with you. And indeed, on certain occasions, if situations are very difficult, we can look at not only extensions from the point of view of submitting assignments, but we can also have a look at your actual timetable. From the point of view of, could we assist you? We usually finish on a Friday at lunchtime because some people are living as far away as Donegal, and they need to get home at the weekends. So we finish around lunchtime on a Friday, and we try our best not to start before 10 o'clock on a Monday.
That's great, Finn. You mentioned earlier, Finn, a little bit about assessment and how school placement was assessed. Could you just talk a little bit in terms, I suppose, the education modules and the various subject modules? How exactly are students assessed throughout each year?
Yeah, it's a little bit different to the Leaving Cert in that we would focus an awful lot on continuous assessment. We focus a lot on skills development because that's what we're at. So you would have the opportunity to practice your teaching in the company of yourselves, obviously, but also in the company of methodology tutors on campus. You would have the opportunity to study things such as adolescent development, or how best we can use praise in teaching students. So those elements of the program might fall in under an essay, but equally we might ask you to engage in a poster presentation. We might ask you to stand up and present on a particular topic or share a particular problem that you perceive in our educational system. Remember, we're all about making our educational system a better place because of your existence. So while we strive to be better in what we do on campus, we're also expecting you to strive to be better teachers than the generation that went before. And that's because you have to. And that's not a heavyweight. That's actually something that many students find attractive and very appealing.
That's great, Finn. Emma Fennerty has a question. She wants to know, is there an Erasmus exchange during the course of any of the 4 years? You might just talk a little bit, Finn, maybe about the study abroad opportunities.
Yeah, the study abroad opportunities include Erasmus, most definitely. And we also have the provision to travel, especially in year 2, that you can travel. Currently, we have structures in place in a number of countries. And by the time year 3 comes around for you, we will have multiple opportunities. We will also by then probably have a semester like Erasmus arrangement where you can go away for 1 semester to a different location, a different college, and you come back and it's like you were never away from the point of view of getting the credits you deserve for your program of study while abroad. There are lots of opportunities. The year 3 one is curious as well, Pat, in that you can go anywhere you want for that 2-week placement in year 3. So if you have a granny in Glasgow or an uncle in Timbuktu, over to you. Once we cover certain criteria, you can go and do that. Because what you probably realize more than I do, folks, those of you in school today, well, at the moment we'll say not necessarily today, but you will know about the diversity of the young people in the classroom. And one of the things we're striving to achieve here is that we would acknowledge that diversity by giving you as diverse an experience as you possibly can while you're with us, so that then when you go into class, you can build upon what you practice while abroad. Now, curiously, just to add, we are also engaged in work online where you don't have to leave the comfort of your home, and yet you might be involved in a project with, for example, student teachers in Malawi looking at something like, well, how do you teach languages? So we'd have our Irish students will be talking to Malawian students about teaching English and so forth. We might also have the scenario where you could talk about any particular topic, be it inclusion, diversity, or whatever. So really, really strong emphasis, Pat, on our side. We're conscious Thurles is a small town. We're conscious it's not, necessarily the most attractive place to go to. So the opportunities to travel are built in intentionally for a whole range of positive reasons.
That's great, Finn. Some great detail about the off-campus opportunities there. We have another question. This one is from R, and I might just answer myself. They want to know, can you do this course on the Limerick campus? So I suppose all of the courses Finn is talking about here today are on our MIC Thurles campus, and that's in County Tipperary only. So next question is from Adam O'Dwyer, and Adam wants to know, is there a high demand for the courses in Thurles, Finn?
Yeah, Adam, an increasing demand, and going back to R's question as well, Thurles is only an hour away from Limerick, so it's not too far. And in fact, Thurles is excellent from the point of view of rail and transport. I travel from Cork; it's an hour for me each day, and again, the rail service is phenomenal. But to go to the next question, remind me again, Pat, what were we
Do you
asking?
want to know, is there a high demand for the courses in Thurles?
Yeah, thanks. There is an ever-growing demand. Every year our points go up. Our campus is full. We started off with 186 students in 2016. When you arrive, we'll have over 500 students. So there's a huge demand, and you know, if points is one way of capturing demand, then yeah, we are very much in demand. When we started off, our points were at 300 and something, and now, as you can see, some are at 400, and indeed, one has exceeded 500. But look, don't worry too much about the points. Don't worry too much about the demand, other than to know that we must be doing something right, and it must be worth coming here if there is that demand. But as I said earlier, my advice is don't be overly fixated on points, and don't be overly fixated on the program with the least points. Be fixated on what you're fixated on. Be fixated on your passion and your areas of interest.
That's good advice, Finn. I suppose you probably agree with me, Finn. I suppose one of the great things about all the Thurles programs is the fact at the end of your 4 years, you're obviously qualified to teach your 2 subjects, but you have a degree in those 2 subjects as well. So you kind of touched on it earlier, Finn, but maybe you might just elaborate a little bit on that, and maybe that there are other options even apart from post-primary teaching, if you so wish.
Yeah, if you really get the bug for academia, you can always go straight into postgraduate studies. And because we're MIC, we have a very broad range of options open to you in that postgrad space. And we won't complicate the situation by listing those today, but just to know that you could, either on a full-time or a part-time basis, engage in postgraduate studies directly after college. Some of you, if you show significant grow or strength for a particular subject, you might even be supported by the college. You can be given scholarships. You can become a departmental assistant, which means that you might do a little bit of teaching while your fees are paid for, and you're paid for your teaching, and it allows you qualify with a master's or a PhD. So yeah, that joining the MIC family brings many benefits, including that postgraduate one. And obviously the other one is the reputation of the MIC logo and all that it stands for, and that opens up doors irrespective of your subject area, and certainly opens up doors way above and beyond just education.
Yeah, that's a great point, Finn. And I suppose a follow-up of that, which is often at career fairs, you know, I talk to students and they might be thinking of secondary teaching, and you know, they might be thinking obviously doing an arts degree in their 2 subjects, and then they have to go on and do a 2-year professional master's to qualify to teach those subjects. So, you know, I suppose we're talking about 5 or 6 years worth of study. But you know, you touched on it earlier, like all of our programs in Thurles, you're fully qualified in 4 years. So I suppose there's great savings there, not only in time, but also in money and finance as well, Finn, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, and great savings in effort too, in a sense, because sometimes you have to transfer from one faculty to another in that consecutive approach. And yeah, for me, Pat, I do appreciate the great savings in all those variety of ways. But I think it's the quality of the program ultimately is the most important point to stress in that regard, because you are literally going from one class where you're learning about business into another where you're learning about, well, how do I encourage learning among certain students? And when you're in the business class, you're thinking of how could I teach that to certain students? When you're in the education lectures, you're thinking that's something that I could apply when I'm teaching business. So yeah, the minute you cross the threshold, you've stepped from thinking about becoming a teacher to becoming a teacher. And then 4 years on, voila, you're qualified.
That's a great point. Just a question on Gaeltacht placement, Finn. If you do Irish, do you have to do Gaeltacht placement? And I suppose how often do you have to do it? Yeah,
the sum total of your Gaeltacht placement across the 4 years is 4 weeks. You would do 2 weeks in year 2 and 2 weeks in year 4. That's the current requirement. It used to be more, but it has been reduced by the Teaching Council. And the other piece that I'd like to say there, Patrick, is that I was saying 100% employment, but if you're doing Gaeilge, what's lovely about our program is you come out as a Muntor le Gaeilge, and that little preposition le is important. And what we do as well is we have very strong connections with Gael Colashti. So we would invite you to consider going on placement in a Gael Colashta. Some people find that, you know, maybe a little bit daunting, but in fact, it's very, very enriching. And we do have additional classes and preparatory work that we engage in to support students to consider that pathway. Definitely, if you have a graph for Gaeilge and you want to use it on a daily basis, gaining employment in the Gael Colashti is certainly currently it's an open door. It's more than an open door. You know, if you were they'd be pulling you in. So it's something to consider from the point of view of Gaeilge. And the Gaeltacht piece as well, of course, is that you can do your school placement in the Gaeltacht should you wish. And again, you know, people might be saying, is my Gaeilge good enough? I think the most important question is your attitude right? And if you have a love for the language and you're willing to give it your best shot, then you blossom on campus. Just like my own career background, as I said, I didn't get enough points in my leaving cert, but it's when I went to college and the fact that I chose my subjects, and one of them happened to be Gaeilge, that I chose the subjects I liked, and I met some good lecturers along the way and some wonderful people. That's you know, that's the opportunity at third level that maybe isn't always made available in leaving cert because there's such a concentration on the exams.
Yeah, that's a great point, Finn. We have a question now from Deirdre. Deirdre wants to know, is there a high level of maths required throughout the BEd in Gaeilge and business? She's currently doing lower level maths. Yeah,
the answer is in your favour. What's the name of the questionnaire or questioner again? Sorry,
it's Deirdre.
Deirdre. Deirdre, you're safe. Your requirement from a maths point of view in business is there. Obviously, it makes sense that it would be, but it's not overly demanding. I have not in my 6 years here come across a student challenged by the maths from a business perspective. And please note as well, as per the presentation, you have additional supports here as well, in the sense of, I won't say grinds, but you can go and you can meet people who will give you additional support in whatever area. It could be academic writing, it could be Gaeilge, it could be maths. And within that, you decide what it is you want to concentrate upon. And the other good news is one of our lecturers, Maria Ryan, she did her PhD on maths anxiety and the whole tension around learning maths. So Maria would be a person that you could talk to as well if there were any concerns. But I wouldn't let it stop you, Deirdre. I would go for it, and rest assured then that if you do need some support around the mathematics and business, that would be there for you as well.
Yeah, great point, Finn. And just for your own sake, Deirdre, like the entry requirement for maths, I'm just looking at it on my screen here. It's an 06 at ordinary level or a H7 at higher level. So even if you're doing ordinary level, you get that entry requirement. You'd still be able to meet the entry requirements for the program. Just another question for you now, Finn. One that came in here was just about student life on the Thurles campus. I know you mentioned you were at a Jive meeting earlier today, and so you might just tell us a little bit about maybe some of the clubs and societies and kind of student life in general on the Thurles campus.
Yeah, I guess the positives is it's one big family, and student life is everything we do from that point of view. The extracurricular activities are very basic at one level, and not surprising. We have the sport, we have the jiving, we have the Cumann Gaelach, we have access to the local swimming pool, we have access to the local theatre. All of this is within a stone's throw of our campus. But the most important thing, I think, around clubs and societies is whatever you want to set up, you can set up. This year, as I said, we have tag rugby. This year we have golf. We have chess. I think there's a Harry Potter group out there somewhere as well. So look, the world is your oyster. If you get 20 other students who say, yeah, I'm committed to being involved in this, then the student union come in with financial support to make it happen. And yeah, I mean, that's where the best crack happens. The town of Thurles itself, yeah, it's a small town and it wouldn't have the same offerings as a larger city, but you're spared a lot of expense then. Accommodation is a lot cheaper, transport's a lot cheaper. You're known in the town as well, because after a while people get to know you. Yeah, there's a few famous pubs, but there's also a lot of students. I think nationally 1 in 4 students don't drink. That's not to say they don't go to pubs, but they don't drink alcohol. So there's a whole range of other things that people can do. Traditional music would be another element of pastimes here. And yeah, it's probably as diverse as any other college. It's just that the numbers would be a lot smaller.
Thanks, Finn. Fiona Sharp has a question. Fiona wants to know, does the content of the maths, part of the maths and business program, does it get much harder than the level of leaving cert, higher level maths?
Yeah, I suppose the answer is yes, it does. But you come in with the grades as we described earlier, and you're then in the company of 2 wonderful young maths lecturers who will work with you and encourage you and support you. But yeah, you'll qualify with maths that will be of a higher standard than leaving cert. And the reason behind that is, for example, when you're asked a question in class, I don't know if you can recall the teacher who didn't really know why they were doing it, they were just doing it. The magic of qualifying with a higher grade is that you actually understand the reason behind some of the practices that we engage in. That could be mathematics, the one about how do you divide fractions, you multiply the top and bottom line or something along those lines. But when you have a higher degree, you actually know why that is happening, as opposed to saying just do it. And equally with Gaeilge and grammar, you would have an in-depth understanding of Irish grammar, so that you can explain why there's a shevu or an oru, as the case may be. So it's, as I say, it can get quite intricate, and you can make it as intricate and go as deep as you wish, safe in the knowledge that you're going to be supported by top quality staff. Our staff, quite a lot of them come from Thurles, obviously, or surrounding counties, but we're also drawing on international staff. Last year, our maths lecturer was employed from England. We have an education lecturer who's coming from Perth. Haven't quite told her yet the weather conditions in Thurles as opposed to Perth, Australia. So we'll see how her face looks when she gets off the plane. But yeah, that's the other piece, I guess, is that as we grow and develop, we're bringing a global diversity to the classroom as well, which will help you, as that last question was asking, with regard to going deeper than higher level maths.
Thanks, Finn. Our time is almost up, Finn, so I'll just put a final question to you. I suppose Mary McKenna College is always very keen to help ease that transition from secondary school to a third level. So you might just talk a little bit about the student supports at Thurles, and I suppose really how well you look after your students and give them every opportunity to thrive.
Yeah, well, what I love about our staff is they're quite happy to be called by their first name, and more importantly, they call the students by their first name. So you're not a number in Thurles, you actually are your first name. So that's the first thing. The most important supports we have is each other, particularly student to student. That peer support is very important. We do have formal counsellor and chaplain and so forth, which are availed of very regularly, not by the same people, but we are aware of some of you will be, homesick. Some of you will be sick of home. Some of you will be a combination of. And as I say, things can get in the way of life and your plans. So there are all those supports. And I suppose the other important support is that in year one, while you're obliged to engage in classwork and submit assignments, at the end of year one, the clock is reset. So when we grade you on the cumulative effect of your year 2, 3, 4 grades, with a weighting towards year 3 and year 4. but it means that year one isn't a high pressured academic space. It's a space to learn, most definitely, but it's also a space to make mistakes. And those of you who have acquired a skill, you know that sometimes the acquisition of any skill, be it how to play hurling or whatever, is based on the mistakes you make, sometimes in private, sometimes in matches, but you learn from those mistakes. And there's a very strong link between making mistakes and improvement, just as there is a very strong link between confusion and learning. And you have to go through that confusion fog in order to learn something. If you don't, it means you already knew it. But if you have to go through that fog, the best way to clear that fog of confusion is to ask questions. And the best way that we can provide you the opportunity to ask questions is our class sizes are still quite small. Our lectures, okay, could be up to 150, but our tutorial classes do not exceed 20, 25 students. So that gives you the opportunity then to ask those pertinent questions. And of course, we have online support, and you have email, and you have access to your lecturers. So that approachability, I think, is probably one of our strengths as well, Pat, when it comes to supporting students.
That's great, Finn. And we might just fit in one final question. It's from Joan O'Toole. She just wants to know about return transport from Thurles into Limerick City in the evenings. You kind of touched on this a little bit already.
Yeah. A lot of students in year one would, maybe the first semester, they might try and commute. You know, if let's say they start at 10 on a Monday, they might get up early Monday morning, and they might then maybe commute for the week. It is 12 weeks solid. It is tiring, but I am aware, given the scenario that we had this year, that some students are commuting and then they're pooling resources. So, you know, somebody's got a new car out of their PUP payment or whatever, and they're giving lifts to 3 or 4 people back to Limerick. You have a very regular train service. I mean, like Thurles to Limerick Junction is just a hop down the railway line, and then you're on to Limerick. So there are opportunities. Some people like to commute in semester one, as I say. Some then in year one as well. The other option, if you're unlucky and you don't get one of the single room accommodation on campus, what actually works out about, I think it's just over €100 a week, which is good value. But if you're not lucky enough to get one of those slots, then there are plenty of places here from the point of view of digs, where you would stay with a family, or maybe, you know, there might be an elderly person who would appreciate the company of 2 or 3 students. And the digs then allows you to, you know, you come home, the fire is lit, the meal is there for you. And as you grow and develop on campus, you then discover that maybe the following year you'd like to move out into a house and so forth. But we do work very closely with the local community, because we're so small, everybody knows us and we know everybody. So if accommodation is something that you want to discuss, we can support you with that in advance of coming on campus as well.